Get the PowerPoint back up.
Good afternoon. We're here this afternoon for a work session to discuss our educational facilities master plan in preparation for our annual submission to the Maryland State Department of Planning and the Maryland State Department of Education's Public School Construction Program. There's just 4 of us here this afternoon. Mr. Gesford is not feeling well, and Mr. Stauffer is out of town on personal business. We have with us this afternoon Rob Rollins, Director of Facilities Planning and Development, Mark Mills, Director of Facilities Maintenance and Operation, Chad Criswell, Senior Project Manager and Planning Supervisor, and of course our Interim Superintendent, Dr. Michael. So I'll turn things over to Mr. Rollins. Mr. Rollins.
Good afternoon, President Williams and board members and Superintendent Michael, Interim Superintendent Michael, I guess. So, thank you for giving us the opportunity to bring the Educational Facilities Master Plan to you guys for your review. Do we have the PowerPoint up? There we go. EFMP is made up of 4 elements, and it evaluates communities in Chapter 2, where we look mostly at development, residential development, look at how areas are growing so that we can determine where we need to target facilities and things like that. Chapter 3 looks at the inventory, which looks at the condition of the buildings. So we evaluate the condition and the shape and whether they're also just meeting the educational needs of the students. Chapter 4 looks at enrollment projections, current enrollment and projections over the next several years to determine where growth again is and where we can target facility improvements. And then in Chapter 1 we also look at applicable board policies. These are then put together into the master plan.
As you'll see, our current infrastructure, Washington County Public Schools inventory is comprised of 47 educational facilities with over 3.3 million square feet and over 1,100 acres of ground and property. Of that, we have 26 elementary schools, 7 middle schools, 9 high schools, and 4 instructional centers. This slide represents a chart that kind of depicts our expected life cycle in years. You'll see that we have, for example, the overall life expectancy of a building is approximately 50 years, and a boiler would be 30 years. With 47 facilities and systems, should be planning to replace or modernize about 1 building a year and about two roofs every 20 years.
Okay, we update the plan annually. It's a state mandated update, but and it's due on July 1st of every year. But it would be smart, whether the state mandated it or not, for us to go ahead and take a look at the plan every year, because systems that might fail, that we might have a system planned for replacement in 5 years, but in the next year it might fail and we need to replace it. So we look at things like that. Also, a residential development could come about where we need to reallocate where the projects would be on the plan. We also have enrollment shifts that we might not understand right now that could come about unexpectedly. It's interesting to watch the demographics of the county and how populations shift around, and we have to pay attention to that, so a yearly update is called for. We also try to make a fiscally responsible plan that fits within the budgets of both the county and the Board of Education. We match the county CIP that they approve on large projects, and on systemic projects we try to make them affordable so they can be either paid for by the county or within the board's general fund. This chart shows CIP funding through the last 11 years. Generally, we average about $8.4 million a year that we'll receive from the state. The last 2 years, we've received less. That's based on available local matching funds. But if you look at the other years, you can see that it's just about an average of $8.4 million a year. Even though the last 2 years have been a little less than we've asked in the past, we expect this year's plan, when we bring the CIP to you, to probably be more in line with the previous average of about $8 to $10 million. And finally, the EFMP, as I've said, is the basis for the 5-year capital improvement program. So when the board looks and approves the EFMP, when we come back with the CIP in the fall, it will match the EFMP unless something has happened in between now and when we bring that CIP to you. Otherwise, passing and approving the EFMP basically sets us up for the CIP to match.
So as Rob indicated, chapters 2, 3, and 4 really kind of combine, lay the groundwork for the creation of the large capital project calendar. This is shown on chapter 5, page 5 of the booklet that you have. Basically, it goes from our large request out 10 years. As Mr. Rollins indicated, it does align with the county's FY18 CIP. Upcoming for this coming CIP, you can see that we will be looking for construction funding for both the Urban Academic Hub and for Sharpsburg Elementary School. The out years, again, as Ms. Rollins already indicated, we could see some changes. I mean, we come back and we bring this to you every year. We could see growth patterns, or for instance, we may see the need for an addition somewhere based on enrollment or a change in demographics. But this is our best guess based on the information that we have today.
This chart represents our infrastructure and the age of our school facilities. And as we talked a little bit before, we described the fact that about one school, the 50-year life cycle of a school. As you can see, as it is today, we have 4 schools, facilities, that are over 50 years old and 29 that are between 20 and 50 years old. Of that 29, we have quite a few that are also close to 50 years old. We have approximately 16 of that 29 that are over 40 and 6 that are over 30. Go next slide. If you move ahead 10 years, and sticking with our current master plan and the CIP as we've described it for the next 10 years, this is exactly where we are as far as aging infrastructure. We now have 19 facilities that will be over 50 years old, and 20 to 50, in the 20 to 50 year range, we'll only have 15. So we do have a lot of maintenance and care for our buildings that are going to be aged, and we'll have to keep care of those, or we'll have to either modernize or do some renovations.
So if I go back to that graph, I think this is significant that the board take a look at this. We've shared this with the county commissioners. We just really haven't heard a response. We're not seeing a response based on their 10-year CIP plan. We just continue to try to match out of goodwill what they're proposing that they have available. But this does assume that we complete Sharpsburg on time, Western Heights, Hickory, and that schedule remains solid, as well as the Urban Education Improvement Program downtown. But we'll have 19 schools over 50 years. We'll be averaging a little over a school every 3 years. That puts us, instead of on a 200-year replacement cycle where we were last year, we're still on a 150-year replacement cycle. So Jonathan Hager on this schedule would be replaced in 149 years. It'll be replaced. So I don't think that problem is one that I'm going to worry about too much for Jonathan Hager or a lot of other schools, or maybe many of the board members won't have to worry about that. But that's something we have to discuss at some point. We want to be good partners with our county commissioners, our funding agents. I think we need to take advantage of every dollar we have from the state. The last 2 years, we have not taken advantage of those state dollars. We received 100% of our requests because the request was so low. So if we determine that we're going to be on a 100-year replacement cycle, then we're going to have to also recognize that things are going to look different over a period of time as far as condition of the building. At the same time, we need to focus on keeping the building warm, cool, warm when it needs to be warm, and cool when it needs to be cool, and obviously dry would be key components of what we'll move forward with if that's the will of the community, that's what our buildings are to be. So just something we want to continue to watch. But we're currently, the program that we've shown for the next 10 years, I'd be negligent if I didn't bring it to the board's attention. At some point, that's not sustainable. Again, we want to work with our county. I think they've done a great job helping to support us on reducing deferred maintenance. But we do need to look at some point, what is the reasonable lifespan of a building before we do modernizations. If we determine as a county it's 60, 70 years, we just build that into our maintenance plan, but I don't think a 150-year replacement cycle is going to be sustainable in any way. Sorry, Mr. Rollins.
I'm just going to mention that the warranty on Jonathan Hager does not go out 150 years. As much as we tried to get it, we were unable to. And we've been investigating it for Sharpsburg, but it doesn't seem plausible. So every year we sit down and we meet with Mark and his top team, and we reprioritize the major systemic projects. We look to the ones that are absolutely critical, have to be done. Every year we reprioritize the remaining years, but one of the keys to remember is these two projects will not occur for 2 more summers. So our guys are coming to us saying, hey, we need to really get these things on the calendar. We're still 2 years out from doing them. But based on our current need, we're looking to do a roof replacement at Boonesboro Elementary School and then the second half of South Hagerstown High School. So we did a quick repair last summer over the worst section. We're going to finalize half of that building with a new roof this summer, and then 2 years from now we would like to do the remaining half of South Hagerstown High so we can get the whole building under a new roof. The approximate state funding request for this would be about $2.3 million. The local funding would be about $1.3 million. And based on the current FY18 CIP, the local funding to support these projects would have to come from the general fund, usually the maintenance budget, as Dr. Michael had indicated. So moving on to FY 2020, we have a chiller replacement at North Hagerstown High, HVAC replacement at Smithsburg High School, which is a very large project, very complicated project. And then we have a roof replacement at Williamsport Elementary School. State funding requests for those systemic projects would be about $5.5 million. The local funding request would be about $3.2 million. And then looking at 2021, again, these are subject to change when we sit down and meet with Mark's guys next year. Roofs go bad, things come up, but right now we, based on the current assessment, we are expecting a boiler need at Hancock Middle High School, a roof replacement at Smithsburg High School, and electrical replacement projects at Washington County Technical High School and Williamsport High School, and an HVAC replacement at Williamsport High School. As you can see, this request is a little higher to the state at 9.1. The approximate local funding would be 5.3. This is, again, more of us kind of identifying our needs. As we get closer in time, we may be able to hold off on having to do some of those projects. Every time we bring projects forward to Dr. Michael, his first question is, are they absolutely going to fail? And if we don't answer yes, then we have a further discussion about them. You know, he always makes sure we're asking only for what we need. So,
can I ask a quick question? Looking at Smithsburg High School, we've got the year before is the HVAC. Is there any connection with those two? Does that present a problem that maybe the roof should be before the HVAC?
Well, the HVAC system is internal to the building. We don't have any rooftop units at that school. That's a central plant unit.
If there were rooftop units, we'd really rather do the HVAC first, because if you put a new roof on and then you have the HVAC mechanics tromping all over the roof, you can damage it. So we'd really rather do the roof afterwards. What we do though is we pay attention to the height of the insulation and things that are going to the roof, and when we do the HVAC, we will make sure units are high enough to accept the new roof. So we're already planning on the roof when we do the HVAC project.
Thank you.
I mean, ideally, we'd like to kind of do them together some way, but it's just too big in these big schools to even consider, tackling a project of that nature in a tight summer.
So that is our presentation. Moving forward, we would like to bring the plan back for approval by the board on June 6th. We have the work session now. We are looking forward to any questions you might have here today. We would then incorporate those things into the plan, or even between now and June 6th. Because we have to take it to the state by July 1st. So that's our plan, and we look forward here today to any questions you might have of us. We can answer for you.
Thank you, Mr. Rollins. Mr. Gesford, hello, welcome. We're glad.
Hi.
You sound terrible. We're happy to have you with us. But
If you want me here or not.
just wanted to acknowledge that we had grown from 4 to 5. So thank you for the effort being here. Discussion, questions? Jackie, is that a hand up?
Yeah, our very first priority, the urban educational campus. as I read the paper, I get more and more concerned over this. And as I read documents coming from commissioners, the first thing I saw was, I don't know how long ago it's been, maybe a month ago. All of a sudden, we're missing $4 million for the urban project. That $4 million suddenly appeared down the bottom is still needed, which kind of concerned me. And then now in the paper, I see just this week where, because of some cuts Mr. Trump might make, there's an additional grant that we might not be getting, or the theater might not be getting, which could affect us.
Right, I don't think the ARC grants affect our particular project. But yes, as of now, we're still identifying, funds are being identified to pay for the whole project. And we're looking for leadership from the county commissioners on that funding.
Have we heard any more from them on the
Well,
funding?
we've consistently asked, and I think at our most recent meeting, Rob Slocum's going to be approaching the county commissioners for, direction from them. We've made it clear, Tony and Rob Rollins, myself attend the meetings every 2 weeks. And, the projects are all coming together. It's a very exciting project. It's a good group that's working together. But we continue to identify, the board has put up $4 million. In addition to that, I want to be clear with the board, at some point we will have to furnish the building beyond the $4 million. So we'll look to do that out of operating money over a couple of years as we, kind of can project when the building will be finished. We might start taking it out of the end of next year's budget, the beginning of the following year's budget, the next year's budget type thing like we've done with other schools. But our commitment is $4 million plus staff time, and then obviously furnishing and equipment that we need to put forward. But all along, we've been very clear, beyond what the state will provide. And I think we're being pretty creative with the state money. Andrew Serafini, Delegate Brett Wilson are working with the state, providing money for the bridge. They're also coming up with some additional resources for the county that'll help kind of supplant some of the county needs that they can free up money to put towards the project. So I think we're going to see it come together, I hope, within the next several weeks. But we're anxious to see it on paper and a vote as well.
About the bridge.
The bridge money, right now there's $200,000 that did come through in bond bills just in this past legislative session. It's a high priority for, again, both Senator Serafini and Delegate Wilson, and they'll be submitting bills next year. So they anticipate for the next several years that they'll secure $200,000 per year towards the bridge.
So if it's going to take several years to accumulate those funds, when does it get built?
Well, to get built, our plan is it would get built in conjunction with the renovation of the Hager 5 buildings, as well as the construction of our building. And again, the pre-funding of all that would have to come through some means that the Board of County Commissioners would pull together.
They haven't released yet. I very firmly still stand by what we said, though. No bridge, no project.
And we've been working with University of Maryland on our lease, and we're making it clear that that's part of why that project works, is the bridge. For safety, security, keep kids in and out of the weather. Kind of all the unique things. On a beautiful day like this, the kids love going outside. On a windy, cold, rainy day, it's challenging in and out, wet, dry. We really need to provide a little bit better than that if we can. And that's what makes the Hager 5 building work for us. Without that, the Hager 5 building doesn't work. We've been very clear with that on all of our meetings.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Can you explain I didn't really follow the Jonathan Hager 150-year thing.
Okay, so as you look at, help me here, John, if you look at Chapter 5, the one chart that scrolls this out, Rob, if you could pull that up maybe.
Yeah, page 5. You got it.
Have the PowerPoint back up.
Yes, sir.
Here we go. So just roughly, when you look at opening, so let's think Jonathan Hager opened in 17. If you kind of ignore the urban building, you can see the Sharpsburg won't open until fiscal 21, which would be August, or actually September of 20. Well, that will be 4 years. Yeah, 4 years since the last time we opened Jonathan Hager. So roughly 50 buildings. If we open one every 4 years, that'd be a 200-year replacement cycle. When we start going forward, we have the next building after Sharpsburg opening,
3 years.
Western Heights opening in 23. So that's 3 years. And then again, the next opening in 26 or 7. So that'd be 3 to 4 years. So if you figure every 3 years on 50 buildings, that'd be a 150-year replacement cycle. I think my math's correct. If we go back, Rob, to our chart that showed how often we do air conditioning, heating, whatever. Well, back up one.
Yeah, there you go.
So if you look at buildings, 47, 50 was just making it easy, but 47 buildings, 50-year replacement cycle. On average, we should replace just shy of 1 building a year. So about every 13 months, we should be opening either a renovated building or a modernized building or a new building. And that assumes no growth. And then those other items you can see, the board should see 2.35 roof projects come to them a year, and roughly a boiler project a year, and something like that as far as replacement. So that's kind of the guide we're using. When that stretches from not 1 a year, but every 3 years, or 4 years, or 5 years, it starts to change that replacement cycle. We recognized several years ago when the county got hit with the road money, the lack of road money, they suddenly had to pick up millions of dollars of road money here locally. And it was part of their presentation at the County Commissioner's public budget session here a couple weeks ago, where they described to the community as they were able to pull together road money. Their road almost used our same analogy. They were on like a 30 or 40-year road replacement cycle with, however, they've rearranged money and some new monies that they received. They were able to pull that back into, I think it was like into the teens, as far as a road replacement cycle. And the next day in the paper, there was a whole list of roads replaced. So much like we want to take care of our assets in roads, we probably have $500 million worth of buildings. I mean, that would be our 3.37, 3.3, 3.4 million square feet at $100, $150 a square foot. You're looking at $500 million, so $500 million for the buildings. You have to continue to invest in that. It's just like your home. If you don't invest in that regularly, at some point you're going to have a big investment. If you let the wrong things go, let water infiltrate your building or your house or your home, let something go too long, you're going to have a bigger problem than you would have had you maintained it. And so to Mark's team, if it's 20-year life replacement, we try to stretch 22, 25, 30. We have some things that most school systems would have replaced 10 years ago. We're still making them work, do the good credit and work of our teams at work. And I think that's just good fiscal management on Washington County Public Schools' part. At the same time, at some point, things just wear out. And we just have to be smart about that. So for the next 4 or 5 years, 10 years, we can probably make this work, but it's not sustainable forever. And at some point, it's going to build a crisis for somebody. So,
Just to reiterate, on top of what Dr. Michael said, he mentioned that there's no capacity projects on our current plan. Right now, it's all Sharpsburg's a replacement, modernization of middle schools. Our enrollment projections are fairly flat. We've been fairly flat the last couple of years. So we don't see anything on horizon growth-wise right now. But in a couple of years, that could change. And if you throw a new school where we need capacity into that mix, it pushes schools out even further.
and that's exactly what happened to Besser Elementary. Besser was kind of on the bubble there to be done as the next school to be completed. All of a sudden, we started into that growth spurt, and Rockland Woods, Morgansville, Pangbourne pushed it out, and then Ruth Ann Monroe pushed it out, and the Need for Antietam Academy pushed it out, and finally it got its turn. But that's what can happen as we see these middle schools in particular, a whole row of them coming up that are going to be over 50 years old. They're built, with the exception of Hicks, with that open school concept. They have steep ramps. They have, Smithburg has a place that even I kind of have to about half duck my head to go under. It's ridiculously low, Rob. I don't know what, you would definitely hit your head going underneath there.
I don't have a problem. I don't know what you're talking
But I mean, there's just things that in those buildings, they were put up quick and cheap, and we're seeing that in those designs, plus their open school concept. And every day we get requests from people to please wall up our buildings. And we have partial walls and all types of things. And it all plays with the heating and cooling, air conditioning, all that stuff. So it really needs to be done right at some point.
The Sharpsburg Elementary, how many students is that hold? I know
The proposed new school would be 471 students, three-round school.
okay, how many do we have there now?
About 250, I don't remember the exact enrollment from the September, but
Full 150
from,
nearby.
yes, sir.
It's right at capacity.
Yes.
The SRC is, the state rated capacity is 252 students, and I think, yes.
Yeah.
So
So as we look at Boonesboro, starting the back, they've dropped off almost 135, 40 children, but the last 2 years, they've grown back 40 or so of those children. And we're slowly enrolling some additional students out of that Sycamore Run development. I think it's 103 or 4 houses in there, about half of which are built so far.
Sure.
And there's several other large developments that, again, kind of waiting on this housing market. So is it going to take off, or is it going to flatten out? We just don't know. But we think the Sharpsburg plan's a really good plan to take us for several years with growth in that area. Jonathan Hager, of course, we're poised with it to add a 4th and 5th round if something in the north end or west of Hagerstown was to take off and grow, or if we saw more children out of some of the apartments, or if we saw that as a capacity need for pre-K. Maybe a 4th and 5th round added there without additional students other than pre-K, redistrict a little bit and try to provide space in some of the surrounding schools that we can make some space for pre-K, be another option.
Just out of curiosity, we're using more and more technology, more and more computers. Approximately, how does that impact? How is that figured into upgrades or modernizations, or whatever the case might be? Is all of that included in those we're looking at?
Yeah, when I perform my facilities assessment, I do get information from the technology department.
Looking at that, I
Mhm.
mean, that's another expense.
So actually,
Modernize.
right, that for Sharpsburg, for instance, that might be something we'll talk about at tonight's board meeting with the educational specifications. For Sharpsburg, you'll see that the square footage we were putting in the media center is down a little bit, but the use is also changing. They're looking at making maker spaces. They call it STEM or STEAM. I've seen it written both ways. Different classrooms off the sides for kids to be able to use, large collaboration spaces. So that use is changing, and that is one of the challenges of trying to determine what is that need going to be in the next 10 years, and then what is that going to be in the next 20 years. So we can make sure we stay flexible enough to keep meeting those demands.
Plays a part in, what we're going to build in the next 20 years. I mean, it changes every year. I mean, I don't know how you can even think about 10 years in the future.
right, gone are the days of classrooms partitioned off with block walls. We use drywall now, so there's opportunities in the future if the space needs change to be able to go in and easily reconfigure.
One of the things that we've been kind of recouping in some of the buildings is with the iPad initiative in a lot of the schools, the actual computer labs that we used to have, we had wires all over the place. Some of those are now being reclaimed again as classroom spaces or maker spaces or other issues. So
Reduce the number of wired technology connections and
Right.
put a really robust wireless system in. So,
Western Heights, Springfield Middle, in particular, we're looking at modernization to be fixed. Those have to be pretty complex.
yes.
Pull that off. Over how many years will it take? Is that a 1-year project, 2-year project? I mean, we're going to have people in the schools.
Correct.
Probably over 2 school years. We'd probably need to bring, of course, final plans haven't been even close to being developed. But if we modernize the existing building as it sits, we would probably bring a lot of portable classrooms to the lease them probably, bring them to the site and move part of the student body out into portables and do, just for example's sake, half the school, and then move kids into the newly renovated part and move students out into the portables on the other half and finish it. So probably over 2 school years, probably a 24-month schedule.
Trying to do
If we can speed it up, we will, but remember Boonesboro High School, so way back in 1975.
I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our students were in the building.
Yeah.
And it's possible in those sites we could look at, is it cheaper, is it better just to relocate on the site or partially on the site and then move children around, something like that. Springfield, one of the big challenges with Springfield, those long ramps, all of those are way too steep for ADA compliance. So as we try to work with those levels,
8
is that
different
something you
levels.
remodel in that school, or is that something you just kind of pick a level and start over, or do you try to
Build around.
shift left or right or to the back? Yeah.
With the urban project, terrible question to ask you poor guys. We've been messing with this now for how long?
Seems
least.
like a little while.
Might be longer.
I always think, you know, what would I do when you see a model or a new, knock down, build it back up. Every year that you put it off, are you seeing that? It's going to be a little more than we anticipated at the outset. Just a guess.
Well,
I'm not looking for, obviously.
I think from 2 years ago when we were first, 2 or 3 years ago when we first formulated, certainly the prices have gone up, the cost of construction's gone up. So when you see when we get the final price through bidding and stuff on that, hopefully this fall, you'll see an increase from what was proposed a few years ago when we were going it alone, I think. And most of that's attributable to increasing construction cost, I would say. The square footage is a little less, but the cost goes up. So yeah, it's a fair statement.
It's, it's a little bit frustrating. You know, we had this idea that, you know, had we had the funding to go, we could have gone it alone, and it probably would be close to finished by now.
Yes.
I wonder if my problem with it, and I want it to happen, you know, as well as I do. My problem is, how do you get all of those phases that have to go together to happen together? You know, it's
Right.
one thing to do our building, for example. It's another thing to add the one on Washington Street. And then Maryland Theater, which is still how many millions of dollars short on the amount of
Right.
money they're going to need. What we do with our building depends a lot on them.
Right. So I think the coordination between the Maryland Theater and the building proposed for Washington County Public Schools is being done right now. And if the Maryland Theater project was delayed, we'd still be set between floor levels. And I think all that stuff would turn out okay. I think the real key is the discussion on the bridge, because the science labs will be in the USMH annex.
How much would an extra floor be? Just out of curiosity. Rough
Extra
guess.
floor?
We were supposed to
Five.
do 5 originally.
1.5, 2 million, yeah, probably. Yeah. Probably err
Wouldn't
on
be
the high
more,
side.
you probably wouldn't be more than that, because we'd already have foundation, just take thicker slab and thicker steel, but roof is going to be there and those types of things. You're really just building out. It's kind of like adding on the second floor of a house. They generally say it's about 50% of that of the.
They
Again,
drive the
we're-
cost a little because the environment is a little more robust with casework and plumbing and things like that. But I mean, we could certainly ask the question of the contractor if it was appropriate. So
Well, right now,
report back to you.
we're all in with the project unless the board directs otherwise, and we certainly want to support the community effort that benefits lots of different things. I think it can be advantageous to get our building up first over the Maryland Theater, and we could probably help with our building to help keep the Maryland Theater open while they're under construction. I think to have both those projects fully under construction at the same time, I think would be a challenge for the Maryland Theater to stay open, but I think they're working on how they would do that. I don't know those plans, but our plan right now is to have drawings finished by October. You'll see those several times over the next several months, and I'm hoping that we have a firm number here going into the fall, and we see demolition start late, in the winter here. In January, we're starting to construct something.
Yeah, we should be bringing the ed spec and the schematic drawings for that building to you in the near future. We have to get the schematic drawings through the advisory school design review committee that the county does. And as soon as we get that scheduled, we've asked for it to be scheduled. We get through that process and they approve it, then we can bring it to the board for its approval.
And she'll be back a month or two after that with GDs and back, several months after that with construction documents.
Correct.
So we're moving. We're moving on that.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Okay, so then, with regard to Mr. Rollins' request, do we have consensus that this is in fact the schedule we want to follow and the plan that we want to submit so that we can bring this forward on June 6th, was it?
Yes.
Yes, we're seeing nods? Yes, yes. Okay,
Okay, so staff will come on
Thank you.
June 6th, probably a 5-minute presentation, about half of what you just saw here in the PowerPoint, and ask for your approval would be our plan.
Good.
okay.
Okay.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
guys.
much. And we are adjourned until our closed session.